again, breathe in deeply and gently exhale. As we go within to that place of greater spiritual awareness, many of us are carrying with us the thought of another place. Right now, the residents of Florida are going to be experiencing the power of nature in its fury. The wind, the rain, the ocean. And so it's okay for our awareness to move to that place. And if we're feeling a sense of powerlessness about the outcome of this storm, let's let go of that sense of impotence and power, and let us tune into the power and presence that is within us and within every situation. Perhaps you have a loved one who lives in Florida, family member, friend, business associate, Facebook friend. There are people you know there. Almost everyone does. Allow that person's or persons' face to come into your mind. See them whole, well, and safe. Let us bless all of these people with the power of prayer. A prayer that has been used for decades. Bring about peace, security, and wholeness. It is the prayer for protection. And so let these persons come to mind and silently affirm, the light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is. As we pray this prayer for others, we do so with the knowing that they are encompassed with spiritual protection, that they are filled with life, peace, we place them and their welfare in the hands of God. So for the next few moments, sit in the calm, quiet, and peace of this place and of your inner space for a moment in the silence. And now, let us emerge from this time of meditation, filled with a sense of confidence, enlivened by our experience of God's Spirit, and free from any concern or fear for our loved ones. For we know that surely the presence of the Lord is with them, wherever they are in this universe. And for this knowing, we give thanks in the name, through the power of the Christ Spirit within us all. And so it is.
Once again, I'm going to give you an introduction to Alden. He's been an ordained minister since 1984. He served at ministries in California, Texas, Washington, and he did 10 years at Garden Park Unity. He served at New Thought Unity Center from 2007 to 8, and he's an author of 4 books, best-selling Unity Bible Handbook, and The Wisdom for a Lifetime. And he will be doing our service right after this song. are you going to? Do you know? Do you get what you're hoping for? When you look behind you, there's no open door. What are you hoping for? Do you know? Now looking back at all we've planned, we've let so many dreams slip right through our hands. Why must we wait so long before we see how sad the answers to these questions can be? Why must we wait so long before we see how sad the answers to these questions can be? Do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Where are you going to? Do you know?
Althea Palm.
Oh, thank you, Althea. That was great. And David and the band. Awesome as usual. Yes. And thank you to our special meditation music person right over here. That's Larry, right there. The bowl. And of course, our sense of blessings go out to Reverends Michael and Megan, wherever they are on vacation right now. We just know that they're having a great time, and they are going to be looking forward to seeing you next Sunday. With a name like mine, I'm often asked the question, do you drive a Studebaker? And I usually answer in this way. I don't drive a Studebaker. I am a Studebaker. The 1957 model, all tuned up, doing pretty well. Now, usually when we think of a Studebaker, we usually think of one that looks a little bit like this. That's a 1951 champion. Oh yeah, the bullet nose. You can't tell which side you're looking at, the front or the back, pretty similar. Right? And when I talk with younger people about Studebakers, of course, they'd never heard of the car, and I would say to them, but did you ever watch the Muppet movie? The Muppet movie, yeah. Studebaker, that champion, yeah. And of course, Fozzie the bear, who rode around in that Studebaker, always said, a bear in his natural habitat, a Studebaker. Personal vehicles. Almost all of us drive them, don't we? And they come in all shapes and sizes and looks and colors. Of course, most people drive cars, but then there are crossover vehicles, SUVs, trucks, all kinds, motorcycles, all kinds. And they reflect our needs and our wants, our uses, and our personalities. And one of the things you begin to notice about a vehicle going down the road once you turn the radio off is there is a noise that you can't help but notice, particularly if you're driving quickly. And that's the noise the wind makes. Where's that sound coming from? Let us realize that when we're driving, we're not driving in a vacuum. We are going through something called what? Air. We're driving through air. Now, normally we think about air, we don't think about something that has much substance because you can't really see it, can you? You look around and, well, what is air? Until you're driving a moving van or some high-profile vehicle. It's like a box going through the air. Strong winds can take one of those boxy vehicles and bounce it around the road. And if you've ever had that experience driving into a strong wind in a big truck or something like that, bounces you around. Hurricane Irma, of course, is on everyone's mind. All the people in Florida. I passed right over the north shore of Cuba. Can you imagine what that was like yesterday, and all the islands in the Caribbean? People in the path of Irma have encountered a very swift movement of this substance called air. I've only experienced one hurricane in my life. Maybe you experienced the same one. You didn't have to go to Florida for it, or Texas, or the Caribbean, or anywhere else. You remember Hurricane Ike? 2008. I remember Hurricane Ike. It was a Sunday. I was guest speaking at the Unity Church in Dayton. And after I came out of the service and we started driving back towards Cincinnati, that's when the force of Hurricane Ike hit. I couldn't figure out what was going on, could you? That car I was driving was not staying on the road very well. And as we got closer and closer to our home, we began to see the result of that 75 to 80 mile an hour wind. And what was crazy about that hurricane is there was what? No rain. No rain. All the rain went west, went through Indiana and up to Chicago in that direction. Trees were all over the place as we drove to our home. I live out in Bright, Indiana. And when I got home, I saw shingles all over the ground from our roof. And one of the very tall black cherry trees that we had in our yard, the top of it was lying on the ground. Our power was out for 3 days. It might have been longer with some of you. And I remember going out that afternoon hunting for gasoline with my 2 5-gallon cans. And of course, power was out everywhere. Couldn't pump gas. Finally found a gas station open with a generator running where I filled up my gas cans. $4 a gallon. I did it. Went back and fired up my own generator I bought back for Y2K. Didn't you buy any Y2K generators? Yeah, I actually got to use it. It was awesome. Had to keep that refrigerator running and the Wi-Fi. You know, you got priorities. So we've all experienced a mini hurricane. But our hearts and our prayers are really going out still to Texas with Harvey, and certainly to Florida right now as the hurricane is impacting that state. Now back to vehicles. As we drive down the road, we either glide through the air or we kind of drag down the road. And it all depends upon what? It depends upon the shape of the vehicle. And have you ever noticed how the shapes of vehicles have changed a lot over the years, haven't they? Do you remember what cars were like about 30 years ago? They were much more angular, square. Some of them were real boats, weren't they? As a kid growing up, our family owned 3 Mercury station wagons. There was a black one, a green one, and a white one. You know, the kind with that fake wood paneling on the side? Those were real boats. Then all of a sudden, cars started to look different. They looked curvier, right? More rounded, like spaceships almost. Boxiness was out, jelly beans were in. And still in today. Why? Fuel efficiency requirements. Oh yeah. Any of you in the car business knows 1975, they came up with the Corporate Average Fuel Economy, CAFE. Write that down, there'll be a quiz later. Companies were required to meet certain fuel economy standards. And one way to accomplish this was to change the shape of the vehicle. So in the 1980s, we started seeing the jelly beans coming out. And the jelly bean goes through the air with much less resistance than does a box. Less resistance means less effort, less fuel expended. And this curvier shape continues to this day, and probably will beyond. The technical term for this subject is called drag coefficient. Drag coefficient. A high number indicates a lot of resistance to the air, a lot of aerodynamic drag. And a low number, which is desirable, means low resistance. You just slip on through the air with great ease. We might think all this information is quite interesting, Reverend. But what does this car stuff have to do with my spiritual life? You know? What about all this business of drag coefficients? How does that relate to spiritual principle? Well, think about it. Physically speaking, we're all a little bit like the vehicles we drive. I mean, even the front of a car resembles our face. We got headlights. We got a hood ornament. And a grill. What we in cars have in common is drag coefficient. And a car's drag coefficient is determined by its shape, its profile, its engineering. Ours, not so much our face, but our spiritual sense, our sense of being, is determined by our consciousness. Do you ever feel like you're kind of just sort of dragging through life, fighting a headwind? Instead of gliding through life, you feel like you're having to use a lot of extra horsepower to kind of get it all done? If this is the case, you might have a high drag coefficient. If within our consciousness there are negative attitudes, beliefs, reactionary patterns, if our general outlook is pessimistic, despondent, it could be that we have a high drag coefficient, a lot like this Winnebago. I saw one of these coming to work today. I passed it. I have nothing against RVs. They are kind of cool. I mean, it's really cool to think you can have a house on wheels. You can drive anywhere. But they don't glide down the road, do they? They plod. And you know that if you've ever been behind one on a country road, like my wife and I were this summer in Arizona. Oh, God. Little faster, little faster. Self-defeating behaviors such as fear and self-doubt and a sense of inferiority, a feeling of unluckiness, a sense of poverty, or that we lack for what we need, or if we feel the world just plain sucks. These are like blunt surfaces, big angles on our consciousness, and thwart our smooth progression through life, defeat our progress. They slow us down because they raise our drag coefficient. High drag coefficient means we will run into resistance in life and feel the frustration of that. And the result is we're not very efficient with the God, Spirit, energies that are flowing through us. We've all felt this way, haven't we? If we're honest with ourselves, we've all had these moments. And the opportunities for developing a high drag coefficient abound, and all you have to do is just flip on the news, TV, smartphone, wherever you get it. And we will discover there's somebody there telling us about all of the threats out there to the well-being of ourselves and others. And we have a choice, don't we? We can buy into the news and allow ourselves to feel anxious and fearful about what's going on out there. We can do that. And raise our drag coefficient. Or we can do what? We can choose to hear the reports as a viewpoint according to those who are reporting the news, and not buy into the fear of the report. To remain spiritually centered in our innate sense of spirituality, and we all have that. We all have within us the presence of the Spirit of God or the Christ within. And so we need to look at what's going on out there in the world from that sense of awareness. This may sound like a rather simplistic approach, maybe a bit pie in the sky. But would you rather live in fear or in positive expectancy? That's the question we need to ask ourselves every day. How will I enter into this life that I have this morning and throughout the day? You see, the vehicle of our consciousness is of our own making. We created it, and we're creating it all the time. Nobody in Detroit or Stuttgart or Tokyo made it for us. We're the engineer designing our own inner vehicle, deciding what our drag coefficient is going to be. And so it's important that we spend some time in the design studio and work on the vehicle of our consciousness, because that will determine what our ride is. We're the engineer. And the engineer that is designing our drag coefficient uses the tools of meditation, prayer, and spiritual study. We have these available to us all the time. As you look at your consciousness, do you feel like you're plodding along like a Winnebago against the wind? Or like my 1992 Volvo 240? Well, they don't make them like that anymore, do they? That's my day off car. When I'm not working, I love to drive this car. It's a fine ride. Used to be just old hippies used to drive cars like this. Now hipsters are into these 240s. The price has gone up on them and everything. And if you drive into a strong wind with this car, you'll know the wind is there. Or we can glide through life like my cousin's Studebakers. See that? That's a 63 Studebaker Avanti. You're thinking, that's not a Studebaker. Oh yeah, 63. And not only that, there's a second one they have, 64. That's my cousin Stu. Yeah, Stu Studebaker. Since my father and uncle passed away, his father did years ago, he's now the patriarch of our family. He looks cool in that, doesn't he? That car looks a little ahead of its time, don't you? You know, that car could come out today and still sell. I think we're mostly familiar with a Bible verse from Handel's Messiah. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, and make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill brought low. And the crooked places shall be made straight, and the rough places smooth. Metaphysically speaking, this reveals the process that we go through of inner transformation. It's God's Spirit working on us to flatten those mountains and hills in our life, to bring about a straightness in what appears to be crooked, to make the rough places smoother, to help us glide through life and reduce our drag coefficients, to no longer allow our external ego to be dominant and always in charge. Misguided error thoughts of fear and jealousy and all of these things are replaced with the concepts of love, peace, joy, and truth. So observe those attitudes within yourself that aren't working. Reshape them. Smooth them out. Ask Spirit to help you improve your drag coefficient. And what are those qualities that lower your drag coefficient? It is love, peace, non-resistance, being accepting of the good that is there for us, becoming a more tolerant person, more forgiving, more compassionate, looking at others and willing to let them live and let live, rather than trying to change them. Being proactive when a situation arises that seems difficult. Looking for the solution and maintaining a sense of overall optimism. When we do this, we glide through life with our hearts open to Spirit. Just as our cars are an extension of our needs and our personality, our success in life is an extension of our consciousness. High drag coefficients inhibit the flow of goods in our life. It just does. But a lower drag coefficient, when we have that going for ourselves, we glide through life. We flow through life, and good comes to us easily. So, why drag through life like a Winnebago or an old Volvo when you can glide through life? So let's be sleek, like this Studebaker right here. Now, if there are any of you out there thinking, well, I wish I could, ride in one of those, I'll be downstairs after the service today, taking you on little drives. Yeah, isn't that a beauty? In this one right here. Well, thank you for listening this morning, and now we will move on to the rest of our service.
Thank you, Alden. I appreciate that. My drag coefficient, is that right? So I'm going to try to lessen that a little bit by sending out a prayer and invite you all to do that with me. I hold a prayer for every soul that stumbles, for every heart that breaks. I hold a prayer that every wall will crumble, every sleeper will awake to see the same eyes full of love to share, and be the same love living everywhere. Pray the prayer that holds me as I hold the prayer. I hold the prayer for every needy baby, for every wounded child. I hold the prayer that will make yes from maybe, always walk the extra mile to see the same
space as we hold the prayer. We hold the prayer for the people in Texas as they begin to build anew. We hold the prayer for all the utility workers that are going there to support them in getting their power back, and all the volunteers that are working so hard to send them food and supplies that they need to help them begin anew. We hold the prayer for Miami, for Florida, for the Caribbeans, for all those city-states that have been feeling the pressure, feeling the rains, feeling the winds of the hurricane there. We hold the prayer for Mexico as they went through the earthquake. And we hold the prayer for Jose that she will dissipate and go back to nothingness into the sea. We hold the prayer for this city because we are strong in all that we believe there is power in prayer. Let us begin to experience this power in prayer. Lord, we need a miracle. We need your blessings to fall down upon this earth. We need healing. We need love. We need support. Help those people to help themselves as they too rise from nothingness and begin anew. Hold the prayer. Hold the prayer. Hold the prayer.
I hold the prayer that every heart be mended,
Every heart.
every soul covered in grace. I hold
Hold the prayer. I hold the prayer. And I know you hold the prayer too.
that when my life is ended, when I see God face to face, I'll see the same eyes full of love to share.
They rise again,
And
y'all.
be
They shall rise.
the same love living everywhere, and be that breath
Support
that
them with your
holds
love,
me,
with your blessings, with your prayer.
and I hold the prayer. I hold a prayer.
I hold the prayer. Keep the faith and hold the